I felt his gloved hand press against my back as I stood on the frozen waterfall, 200 feet above the valley floor. The ice axe slipped from my right hand as I pitched forward, but I didn't shout for help. 60 feet down, my left axe caught a shelf of blue ice, hidden from the climbers above by the waterfall's curve. My shoulders screamed from the sudden stop, my crampons scraping uselessly against the frozen cascade. Above me, I heard my son-in-law's voice, breathless but measured. "Natalie. Marcus, come quick." A pause. Then his tone shifted to something I'd never heard before. Calculated relief mixed with manufactured panic. William slipped. Oh, God. I think his line failed. He went over the edge. I clung there in the Alberta cold, my 63-year-old arms trembling, and made a choice that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. I wouldn't call out. I wouldn't let them pull me up. I needed to hear what Graham would say when he thought I was gone. Let me back up. 4 days earlier, I'd been standing in a boardroom in Toronto, signing the papers that transferred Northern Heritage Mining, the company I'd carved out of the Canadian Shield over 35 years, to a consortium of American investors for $85 million. My daughter, Natalie, had flown in from Calgary for the signing. She stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder as I put my signature on the final document. "Congratulations, Dad," she said, and I caught the tightness in her voice. Mum would have been proud. My wife Margaret had been gone 3 years, ovarian cancer. She'd always told me I worked too hard, that I'd regret missing Natalie's childhood for site inspections and stakeholder meetings. She'd been right, of course. She usually was. "I'm taking real time off," I told Natalie as we left the lawyer's office. "Not a long weekend here and there. Proper time. I want to make up for the years I missed." Natalie smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She'd inherited my drive, maybe too much of it. At 40, she ran her own environmental consulting firm in Calgary, pulling the same 70-hour weeks I had. "That's great, Dad. I wish I could join you, but we're in the middle of 3 major assessments. The oil sands projects are at critical stages. Come with me to Banff," I said. 1 week. My birthday's next month, and I want to spend it somewhere. Your mother and I always talked about going, but never did. The ice climbing expedition. She hesitated, already checking her phone. "Dad, I really can't." "Natalie." I took her hand. "When your mother was dying, she made me promise something." She said, "William, don't let our daughter make the same mistakes you did. Don't let her wake up at 60 realizing she built a career but lost her life. 1 week, please." She looked at me, really looked at me, and something shifted behind her eyes. "Okay," she said quietly. 1 week. But Graham's coming too. I'd reserved a lodge in Banff, one of those timber and stone places with mountain views and hot tubs that look like postcards. I'd invited a small group, Natalie and her husband Graham, my lawyer Marcus Chen, who'd been with me since the early days, and Trevor, my old geology partner from the first northern expeditions. Graham was Natalie's age, a financial advisor she'd met at a conference 6 years back. They'd married quickly, too quickly I'd thought at the time, but Natalie seemed happy, and that's what mattered. He'd joined Northern Heritage as VP of Finance 3 years ago, and he was competent enough. Smooth, always knew what to say, always had the right answer ready. "This is brilliant, William," Graham said when I told him about the trip. "You've earned this. 35 years of grinding, and finally you get to enjoy the rewards." I should have noticed something in how he said rewards. Looking back, there was an edge to it, a hunger. But I was caught up in my own plans, my own guilt about the past to see it. We arrived in Banff on a Tuesday in February. The lodge exceeded the photo's promises. Log construction, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Rockies, the whole mountain range spread out like nature's cathedral. Natalie actually put her phone down when she saw it. "Dad, this is incredible." Marcus arrived 2 hours later, looking uncomfortable in winter gear he'd clearly just bought. "Brought my laptop, just in case," he said sheepishly. Graham was last to arrive, carrying gifts. A bottle of 18-year Glenfiddich for me, cashmere gloves for Natalie. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass at dinner that first night. We ate in the main lodge, elk, steak, and local beer, while a fireplace the size of my old office crackled beside us. "I've been thinking about the money," I said, as we watched the alpenglow fade on the peaks. "I want to do something meaningful with it. Maybe a scholarship fund for indigenous students in geology and mining. Help kids from northern communities get into the industry." "That's generous, William," Graham said. "But have you thought about the tax implications? You could save millions with proper structuring." "I'm not trying to save money, Graham. I'm trying to spend it wisely." Of course, of course. "I just mean you should consult some estate planners. Make sure everything's properly set up. You know, in case." He trailed off, gesturing vaguely. "In case I die," I laughed. "I'm 63, not 90. I've got good years left. Obviously. I just meant it's smart to plan ahead. Have you updated your will? Named an executor? These things matter, especially with this much money involved." Natalie frowned. "Graham, this is supposed to be a holiday." You're right. Sorry." He raised his glass again. "To William, to retirement, to family." We drank, but I noticed Graham watching me over the rim, something calculating in his expression. The next morning, I woke early and found Graham in the lodge's business center, working on a laptop. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. He startled, closed the screen quickly. "Just checking some client accounts. Old habits. I know the feeling." I poured coffee from the pot the staff had left. "What are you working on?" "Nothing important. Just some portfolio rebalancing." He paused. "Actually, William, since you mentioned estate planning last night, I've been researching it. Did you know that without proper documentation, estate taxes could consume nearly 40% of your net worth? Natalie could lose $34 million. I sat down across from him. That's why I have Marcus. He's handled all my legal work for 20 years. Sure. But Marcus isn't an estate specialist. And no offense, but he's getting on in years. What if something happens to him? You need redundancy. You should consider naming a younger executor, someone who understands modern finance and investment strategies." He leaned forward. "Someone like me. I could help Natalie navigate everything if, God forbid, something happened to you." There it was again. That edge, that assumption of my death. "Graham," I said carefully, "I appreciate the concern, but I'm healthy. I run 5 kilometers 4 times a week. My doctor says my heart's better than most 50-year-olds. "Of course." I didn't mean to suggest. He laughed, but it sounded forced. "I'm just saying proper planning is crucial, that's all." I left him there and went to find Natalie. She was in the pool, doing laps with fierce concentration. I sat on the edge and waited until she finished. "Dad, you're staring," she said, pulling off her goggles. "I'm admiring my daughter. Is that allowed?" She smiled and climbed out, wrapping herself in a towel. "What's wrong? Does Graham seem different to you lately? More focused on money than usual?" Natalie dried her hair. "Graham's always been focused on money. It's literally his job. It's what makes him good at what he does." She paused. "Why? Did he say something?" "He's very concerned about my estate planning. Very concerned about what happens if I die." "Dad, that's not unusual. You just sold your company for a fortune. People think about these things. Maybe, but something felt off. An instinct honed by 35 years of business deals and partnership disputes. I'd learned to trust that feeling. That afternoon, Graham suggested we all go to Johnston Canyon for a preliminary ice climbing session. Marcus begged off, claiming jet lag, but Natalie was game. We drove through Banff National Park, Graham keeping up a steady stream of conversation about the area's geology, about ice climbing techniques, about everything and anything. At the canyon, we met our guide, a weathered woman in her 50s named Sarah, who'd been climbing these mountains for 3 decades. She fitted us with helmets, harnesses, crampons, ice axes. "Graham," she said, checking his gear, "this carabiner's worn. See this stress mark? We need to swap it out." She replaced it with a new one from her pack. "Always check your equipment. Ice doesn't forgive mistakes." We climbed the lower falls, maybe 40 feet. I noticed Graham barely touched the ice, while Natalie and I worked our way up under Sarah's guidance. On the drive back, he offered to stop at a scenic overlook. "Best view of the 3 sisters," he said. The overlook had a stone wall and a long drop to the forest below. We got out, and Graham immediately pulled out his phone. "Let me get a photo of you two. Natalie, stand next to your dad." Natalie put her arm around me, and we smiled. Graham took several shots, then said, "William, how about one of just you? You know, to mark the moment. Your first week of retirement in one of the most beautiful places on earth." I walked to the wall. The drop was severe, maybe 150 feet to the rocky slope below. The wind carried the scent of pine and snow. "Perfect," Graham said. "Now turn and look at the view. I want to capture your expression." I turned my back to him, looking out at the peaks. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Close, too close. Graham. Natalie's voice, uncertain. "Just get in the right angle," he said. I felt him shift position behind me. My years in the mines, where one wrong step could mean a cave-in, where you learned to sense danger before you saw it, kicked in. I stepped sideways just as I felt air pressure change. Graham stumbled past me, catching himself on the wall. "Whoa!" I grabbed his arm. "Careful there." His face was flushed, breathing heavy. "Sorry," I tripped. "These rocks are slippery." But his boots had good treads, and the ground was dry, and his eyes, for just a second, showed something. Frustration, disappointment. We drove back to the lodge in silence. That night at dinner, Graham was overly attentive, constantly refilling my wine glass, suggesting we try the local whiskey, insisting I relax and celebrate. I switched to water when he wasn't looking, paranoid maybe, but I hadn't built a successful company by ignoring warning signs. The next day was the big climb. Sarah had arranged for us to tackle Cascade Falls, a frozen waterfall that required real technical skill. "This is advanced," she warned at breakfast. "We'll rope up in teams." Everyone checks everyone else's gear. No exceptions. Graham volunteered to check mine. "Let me, William. I know the systems." Sarah intervened. "I check all gear. It's my rule." She went over every carabiner, every ice screw, every length of rope. When she got to my harness, she paused. "This buckle's been loosened. See? It would hold for maybe 20 minutes, then fail under stress. Who packed your gear?" "I did," Graham said quickly. "Must have bumped it in the truck. Easy mistake." Sarah's eyes narrowed. There are no easy mistakes on ice. She reset everything, double-checked it, made Graham watch. We drove to Cascade Falls. The waterfall was magnificent, a 200-foot column of frozen water and ice, blue and white against dark rock. Sarah split us into teams. "Natalie, you're with me. William, you're with Trevor. Graham, you're last with Marcus. We'll establish anchors as we go." We started climbing. The ice was solid, blue glacial ice that held the axes well. 50 feet up, I heard Sarah call down. "William, your secondary line. Check the connection." I looked. The rope connecting me to Trevor showed where I hadn't noticed before. Frayed, Sarah descended quickly, examined it. "This has been cut. Not worn, cut. Someone took a blade to this." She looked at Graham, who'd gone pale. "I don't know how that happened," he said. "It was fine when I packed it." Trevor spoke up, his voice tight. "I saw you near William's gear this morning, Graham, before breakfast. You said you were organizing the packs." That's when Graham's expression changed. The smooth mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw what was underneath. Rage, entitlement, the look of a man who'd been planning something and watching it fall apart. We descended. Sarah radioed for park rangers. But Graham pulled me aside before they arrived. "William, can we talk? Privately?" We walked a short distance from the group. "What's going on, Graham?" He stared at the frozen waterfall for a long moment. Then, "Uncle William, can I ask you something, hypothetically?" "I'm not your uncle, Graham. You married my daughter. But, go ahead. If someone, let's say a person who'd worked hard their whole life, who'd never had the advantages others had, finally saw a chance to secure their future, to never worry about money again, but it meant doing something difficult, would you judge them? That depends on what difficult means." He turned to face me. "What if Natalie can't handle 85 million? What if she makes bad investments, loses it all? Wouldn't it be better if someone more financially competent managed it? Natalie is perfectly capable. But what if she's not? What if she's too much like you, brilliant at her work, terrible with money? Wouldn't it be better if I... He stopped himself. If you what, Graham? Nothing. Forget I said anything. He started walking back, but I'd seen it now, clearly. The calculation, the hunger, the resentment of a man who'd married into money but wanted control of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the cut rope, the loosened harness, Graham's questions about executors and estates. I needed proof. I needed to know what he was planning. I found Sarah in the lodge's bar. You saw something, I said quietly. At the falls. What was it? She looked at the door, then back at me. This morning, I saw Graham near the equipment shed. He was doing something to one of the ropes, using a knife. When he saw me, he said he was cutting away a damaged section. But the rope he was working on, it's the one assigned to you for tomorrow's climb. Why didn't you say anything immediately? Because I wasn't certain what I saw. Because he's your family. Who would believe the guide over the son-in-law? She was right. Without proof, without catching him in the act, we had nothing. Sarah, do you have cameras at the shed? She shook her head. But I have an idea. Tomorrow's climb is the big one. Upper Cascade, technical route, serious exposure. We could set up a GoPro on your helmet, record everything. If he tries something, we'll have it on video. We made our plan. I would go through with tomorrow's climb, but Sarah would watch from a different angle with binoculars. Marcus would carry a radio. If Graham tried anything, we'd have multiple witnesses and video evidence. I found Marcus in his room, working despite the hour. I told him everything. The wine glass slipping, the attempts near edges, the cut rope, Graham's questions about my death. Marcus's face darkened. We should call the RCMP now. Tell them what? That my son-in-law asked about estate planning? That a rope was damaged? Without proof of intent, we have nothing. Then, what do you propose? I need him to show his hand. I need him to try again. With witnesses. With undeniable evidence. You're talking about making yourself bait. It's the only way. Will you help me? He was quiet for a long moment. Margaret would kill me if she knew I was agreeing to this. Margaret would understand. We set it up. The GoPro on my helmet, positioned to capture anyone behind me. Sarah carrying binoculars from a safe vantage point. Marcus with the radio, ready to call for help. If Graham tried something, we'd have proof. I found him in the equipment room before dawn, preparing gear. Hey, I said, about yesterday. I'm sorry if I seemed paranoid about the rope. It's just been a stressful few weeks with the sale. No worries, William. I understand. These things happen. Safety first, right? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. About what you said yesterday, I continued. About managing the money, if something happened to me. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should update my will, name you as executor. His eyes lit up. Really? Yeah. Let's finish this climb, celebrate my birthday properly, and then we'll sit down with Marcus, make it official. Perfect, he said. That's perfect. We drove to Upper Cascade as dawn broke over the Rockies. The climb was beautiful, brutal, 200 feet of vertical ice in shades of blue and white. Sarah split us the same way, but this time Graham maneuvered to be near me. I can belay for William, he offered. Give Trevor a break. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. Standard protocol. We started climbing. The ice was harder here, older. Each axe placement took effort. 100 feet up, I paused on a small ledge to rest. Graham climbed up beside me. Quite a view, eh? Incredible. He looked around, checking the other climbers' positions. Natalie was 50 feet to our left with Sarah. Trevor and Marcus were below us. William, he said, I want you to know, I really do appreciate everything you've done for me. Giving me a job, accepting me into the family, you've been good to me. You're married to my daughter, Graham. Your family. He nodded, but something in his expression shifted. Turn around, he said. Look at the view properly. I want to remember this moment. I turned my back to him, facing the valley spread below, my GoPro recording everything. Behind me, I heard his breathing change, heard the soft clink of a carabiner being unclipped, heard the rustle of his jacket as he reached forward. "Graham," Sarah's voice from across the ice face, sharp. "What are you doing?" "Taking a photo," he said, but his voice was tight. "Your hands aren't on your phone. They're on William's safety line." Time crystallized. I felt his hand on the rope at my back. Felt him pull something. Felt the tension change as my secondary line went slack. Then I felt both his hands on my back. A hard shove. I twisted as I went over, my hands reaching, and caught the edge of the ledge. I hung there for a second, then my gloves slipped on the ice, and I fell again. 60 feet down, my left axe caught a shelf of blue ice, a miracle of angle and timing. Pain exploded through my shoulders, my left arm, but I held on. I pulled my legs up, got my crampons into the ice, secured myself. Above me, Graham's voice carried in the mountain air. "Natalie, Sarah, come quickly." A pause. Then William slipped. Oh God, his line failed. He went over the edge. I heard scrambling, heard Natalie scream, "Dad, Dad." Graham again, his voice different now, controlled. He must have hit the rocks below. "We need to call rescue services. We need to—" "Natalie, wait. Think about this." "Think about what?" Her voice was sharp with panic and fury. "If they find him down there, the investigation, the media, the questions about the company sale, all of it, wouldn't it be better if—" He trailed off. "Better if what?" "I'm just saying." An older man. Retirement celebration. Equipment failure on a technical climb. It's tragic, but it happens. Nobody needs to know about the fall, about the investigation. We could say he had a heart attack at the lodge. Died peacefully. A long silence. Then Natalie's voice, cold and deadly. "You want to cover up my father's death. I'm trying to protect his legacy. Protect you from the stress of—" "Protect me from what? An inheritance. You think you deserve it more than me? That's not what I—" "Graham, listen to yourself. You pushed him. I saw you unclip his line. I saw everything." Sarah's voice joined. "So did I. And it's all on the helmet camera that William's wearing. The camera that's recording right now. I heard movement, scuffling. Graham's voice, panicked now. You're making a mistake. That money should be managed properly, by someone who understands finance, not wasted on scholarships and charity projects." "So this is about the money." Natalie's laugh was bitter. "We've been married 6 years, Graham. I trusted you. I recommended you for the job at Dad's company. Trust?" Graham's voice rose. "You want to talk about trust? I've watched you coast on your father's name while I worked twice as hard for half the recognition. You had every advantage handed to you. Do you know what it's like being the guy who married the boss's daughter? I earned my position. I deserved a piece of that $85 million, and instead, William was going to give it all away to strangers. So you tried to kill him. I tried to take what should have been mine. You sabotaged his gear. You cut his rope. You loosened his harness yesterday. All of it. And if you'd just fallen properly, if you'd just died like you were supposed to, none of this would be necessary." The sound of a radio crackling, Marcus's voice. "RCMP and Mountain Rescue are on their way. Graham Palmer, you're under arrest for attempted murder. I'm recording this entire conversation. You can't, Marcus. You're just a lawyer. You don't have authority. I also sit on the board of the Banff Park Foundation and have emergency deputization for situations exactly like this." A pause. Then Graham, quieter, defeated. "William, are you alive down there?" I called up, my voice hoarse from the cold and shock. "Barely. Someone want to help me up before my arm gives out?" It took all of them. Sarah rappelling down with gear. Trevor and Marcus working the ropes from above. Natalie directing everything through her tears. They hauled me back to the ledge. I collapsed on the ice, every muscle shaking, hypothermia setting in. Natalie threw her arms around me, sobbing. "Dad, oh God, Dad, you're alive." Graham stood against the rock face, his expression blank. "This isn't, I can explain. Save it for the RCMP, Sarah said. Mountain Rescue arrived 20 minutes later, along with 2 Mounties. They took Graham away in restraints. He didn't look at me as they led him past. He looked at the ice, at his hands, anywhere but my eyes. The paramedics checked me over. Dislocated shoulder, hypothermia, severe bruising, but nothing broken. They wanted to airlift me to Calgary. I refused. I wanted to see this through. That night, I sat with Natalie in the lodge, the same spot where we'd had dinner 3 days ago. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, I brought him into your company. I vouched for him. I married him. You didn't know. I should have. The gambling debts, the expensive tastes, always talking about who deserved what. I thought it was just ambition. Her voice broke. I almost lost you because I couldn't see what he was. I took her hand. You didn't lose me. I'm right here. Why didn't you tell me what you suspected? Because I wasn't certain. Because I needed to protect you from the possibility that I was wrong. And because I paused. Because I knew if I told you, you'd try to stop me from getting proof. And we needed that proof. You used yourself as bait. I did. That was incredibly reckless. It was. She laughed through tears. Mum would have killed you herself. Your mother probably is killing me from wherever she is. We sat in silence again. Then Natalie said, Dad, I'm taking a leave of absence. 3 months, maybe 6. Natalie, you don't have to. Yes, I do. You were right. Mum was right. I've been making the same mistakes you did, prioritizing work above everything else. I almost lost you without ever really knowing you, the real you, not just the monthly phone calls and quarterly visits. She squeezed my hand. Teach me who you were before the company. Tell me about Mum, about the early mining days, about what actually matters. My throat tightened. I'd like that very much. And Dad, the scholarship fund, I want to help, not just financially, but with time. Real time. We can build it together. We spent the next 2 weeks in Alberta while the legal proceedings began. Graham was charged with attempted murder, fraud, embezzlement. The RCMP found evidence he'd been skimming from Northern Heritage accounts for 2 years, covering gambling debts from an online poker addiction. They estimated he faced 25 to 30 years in federal prison. Natalie filed for divorce immediately. The helmet camera footage was damning. You could see everything. Graham's hands unclipping my safety line. The push. Hear every word of his confession. His lawyer tried to claim temporary insanity. Stress from the altitude. The Crown wasn't buying it. Natalie and I talked, really talked, for the first time in years. I told her about my childhood in Sudbury, about meeting her mother at university, about the early days prospecting in the north when we had nothing but a truck and determination. She told me about her fears, her loneliness, the pressure of being William Thorne's daughter, of living up to a legacy she never asked for. On our last day in Banff, we hiked to the base of Cascade Falls. Someone had placed a small marker there. Sarah's work, she admitted later. The place where William Thorne held on, she'd written. Where choosing to survive changed everything. I stood there with Natalie, looking up at the frozen waterfall. You know what I thought about when I was hanging from that ice shelf? I said. I thought about all the moments I'd missed. All the school recitals. All the science fairs. All the times I chose a conference call over dinner with you and your mother. And I thought, if I survive this, I'm going to make different choices. Natalie leaned against me. So what's first? First, we build this foundation together. Make it something that matters. And second, I turned to her. Do you remember when you were 10 and I tried to teach you about mineral formations? You said it was boring, that you'd rather study ecosystems. I remember. You were so disappointed. I wasn't disappointed in you. I was disappointed in myself, that I'd pushed my interests on you instead of asking about yours. So now I'm asking, Natalie, what do you want to do? Not what you think you should do. What would make you happy? She thought about it for a long time. I want to help mining companies reduce their environmental impact. I want to use my knowledge to heal the damage extraction causes. I want to matter, not just profit. Then that's what we'll do. We'll make the foundation support that work too. Fund, research, restoration projects, whatever serves that vision. Just like that? Just like that. Life's too short for anything else. We flew home a week later. The story had made national news. Mining magnate survives son-in-law's murder plot. I gave one interview to CBC and then refused all others. I didn't want to be famous for surviving. I wanted to be known for what came after. The Margaret Thorne Foundation launched 8 months later, named after my wife. Natalie designed the programs herself, a brilliant mix of scholarships for Indigenous students and environmental restoration grants. We funded 20 students the first year, 50 the second. Graham pleaded guilty to avoid trial. He got 27 years. The judge said at sentencing, "You didn't just try to kill your father-in-law. You tried to murder the concept of family itself, of trust, of the bonds that hold us together. May your time in prison teach you the value of what you destroyed." I went to see him once, 6 months into his sentence. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. We sat in the visitor's room at Stony Mountain Institution, neither speaking for a long moment. "I suppose you want me to apologize," he finally said. "No. An apology would mean you understand what you did wrong. I don't think you do. I wanted what you had." "Is that so terrible? Wanting it? No. Being willing to kill for it? Yes." I leaned forward. "Graham, I would have helped you. If you'd come to me and said you were in debt, struggling with gambling, I would have helped. But you didn't want help. You wanted to take. There's a difference. Easy for you to say. You've never struggled for anything." I laughed, though there was no humor in it. "I worked in mines for 15 years before I started my own company. I missed my daughter's childhood. I barely saw my wife before she died. Success doesn't mean I didn't struggle. It means I chose what to struggle for. I hope someday you understand that." I never saw him again after that. People asked if I forgave him. I told them forgiveness wasn't the right word. I'd released him, released the anger, the betrayal, the what-ifs. He'd have to live with what he'd done. I refused to let it poison the rest of my life. Natalie and I have dinner together twice a week now. We've taken trips, Japan, Scotland, New Zealand. We don't talk about business much. We talk about books, about ideas, about Margaret, about what matters. Last month, Natalie called me at midnight. "Dad, I'm sorry to wake you, but I had to tell you. I'm pregnant. I'm going to be a grandfather. And this time, I'm going to be present for every moment. Every ultrasound, every baby class, every sleepless night. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because I've learned what Margaret tried to teach me all along. Success isn't measured in millions, or mining claims, or empires built. It's measured in moments, in presence, in love. I'm sitting in my study now, looking out at Lake Ontario, thinking about ice cliffs and frozen waterfalls, and the choices that define us. Thinking about a son-in-law consumed by greed and a daughter learning to choose meaning over money. Thinking about second chances and how rare they truly are. If there's a lesson in all this, it's simple. Hold on. When life pushes you over the edge, find something to grip, something solid. And when you pull yourself back up, make sure you're climbing towards something worth the effort. Family, love, purpose. These are the things worth holding on to. Everything else, you can let fall away.